You filthy animals.
How's my buddies over at the R2 Sonic Campfire doing today?
Never well. Keep them warm.
Oh, man.
You guys should come. You're my good luck charms, man. I always catch fish with you guys.
Is there room on the bus?
Because I look at you guys, and the 8 or 9 of you guys impressed me a lot. You know, because I first ran. Okay. You know.
No, go on.
You guys.
I don't do advertising. You're not going to see me on billboards or in newspapers, classifieds, none of that. Well, yeah, there's that because, you know, you guys are awesome. But
Yeah, well, that's comforting to know in case I say something stupid.
No, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You're hearing it real
That's kind of our thing, so don't step on our turf.
Yeah, come on, man.
Oh, man, I hope I don't.
What we're saying is actually new, so that's why we're fumbling a little bit, but it's going to sound amazing.
And we are back. You were listening to the Rutten River Pursuit podcast. We are sitting around a Sonic Campfire tonight. Ooh, it's hot. That sounds hot. Don't forget, though, we are Reality Outdoor Radio, where our mission is to get you in the outdoors by connecting you with the people, skills, and products you can trust.
You can trust them.
Mm-hmm. I am Ryan. Who do we got around the table with me tonight?
I'm Steve.
I'm Catfish.
And this is Logan.
This month's episodes are brought to you in part by Protection First Class Outdoors. PFC lubes were designed and developed to protect and lubricate your firearms, your bows, your tree stands, heck, all your outdoor equipment.
What about fishing rods?
Absolutely fishing rods, Stevie. You know it.
No way.
You know it. Guys, I'm telling you, this stuff was originally designed to use in automotive undercoatings. Now, it don't get more corrosive than that.
I heard that.
That's true.
Hey, Ryan.
Yeah, buddy.
Does it leave a film or residue?
Absolutely not, Brian. No film, no residue. This stuff isn't going to harm the bluing on your firearms, any other kind of finish you got on any of your other outdoor products. This stuff is the ticket. And what? Now, wait.
I bet it freezes.
It does not freeze, Bucky.
What?
Oh.
But there's one more thing I got to tell you about. This stuff will also act as a cover scent.
You got to be kidding me.
How many times you ever taken a well-protected and lubricated piece of equipment in the outdoors? It stinks, boys.
It stinks.
does.
Not this stuff. They got the earth and the pine cover scent mixed right into the lubricant.
Wow.
They
Come
thought
on.
of everything.
That's right, guys. Make sure you head on over to pfcoutdoors.com. Check out everything they got going on over there. Pick up some of that lube. It's the ticket. Boys, how the heck are you?
Not too bad.
I got a special treat for you guys tonight.
I hope so.
Do you?
I do. Stevie's already grinning ear to ear.
I may know who.
He may have a little bit of inside
heads up.
information on as far as what we've got going on
What
tonight.
did you do, Ryan?
Well, here's the deal. We knew we wanted to talk ice fishing, right? And
That sounds good.
while we couldn't get a hold of Gus from Western PA Hardwater Series just yet,
Yeah.
we got what I believe to be is probably the next best thing to Gus Glasgow himself.
Get on with it.
We got ourselves Mr. John Royer is on the line from Leatherwood Outdoors. John, are you there?
John.
Yeah, how's it going, guys?
Hey, bud.
Good, John. So, John, I introduced you that way, of course, for a reason, because I wanted to make sure Stevie was all amped up and ready to go. But folks know you for a lot more things than just ice fishing. Isn't that true?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We everything from rattlesnake hunting to flintlock muzzleloader, and some of the other guys that we have on our YouTube channel, they do all other sorts of things. So, and lots of stuff in the outdoors of Pennsylvania.
We had John on a while back.
Yeah.
This was, a while back. And that was probably the thing I enjoyed talking to him about most in that episode was the rattlesnake.
The rattlesnake hunts.
Yeah. Yeah.
For anybody out there, if there is one or two of you left that haven't checked out Leatherwood Outdoors on the YouTubes, you got to go see it. These guys are literally into everything. And I already know the answer to this, John, but you guys have been having a pretty good season here this past year. Your 2019 turned out to be pretty epic.
Yeah, it really did. And, it really just, with footage, we're not like an outfitter. We're not a professional media company. We're just regular guys, bunch of kids from high school that got together that were already filming. and we said, hey, let's make some hunt videos, put them on YouTube. And so it's when we have time and we do something, the way we hunt is just what the average person can do in Pennsylvania, except we just bring the video camera along. And so we had a good year this year of actually getting the footage. And some years you don't get as good a footage. We're not hunting, high-penned areas. We're hunting fair chase, just like the majority of all the other Pennsylvania hunters out there in the woods. And we had a really good season for laying down the footage and getting some deer so far this year.
Yeah. And I'm just not going to let you undersell it though, John, because you guys, what you're putting out is nothing short, in my opinion, of, outdoor channel, sportsman channel, whatever channel you want to watch, Hollywood quality video. I mean, you guys put together a heck of a story. And my personal favorites, one of the reasons why I decided to try out flintlock hunting late in life is some of that late season flintlock stuff. The videos that you guys do where you're going out in like traditional 1800s clothing. And it's not just it's not a hunting video. It's literally a movie that you put together. And I mean, I've watched enough of your films and I recognize some of the backdrops from some of your other hunting videos. So I know what the property is and the layout that you're like, I know where you're at, but it's still like watching a movie when you watch these things play out. It's actually really, really entertaining.
What you just said, then you will love the next period dress video that I'm making right now this year. I have maybe 2.5 minutes edited, and I thought I couldn't get any better than what I did last year, but I still have to finish it. I have to at least shoot at a deer yet. But what I haven't even shot at a deer yet is still really good.
Nice.
So I'm excited. Hopefully, the season's coming close to an end that I can at least I have 2 tags left. If I can get at least a deer down on video, I think that video will blow all the other ones out of the water.
Oh, that's pretty awesome to hear. I'm looking forward to that already. Mm-hmm. Good.
It's just over the years, you just get better at seeing things with the camera. You get better and better at just running the camera and looking for those shots. So it's some of the guys, it's more of a point and shoot and you're done. And some of the other guys that take a little bit more time with the camera. And so, but still, as we do it more and more, we get better and better with videotaping because we just started out just like home videos. And then we got inspired by the people who viewed us that wanted to watch more. So it inspired us to make better and better videos.
John, do you actually hunt like through the camera lens, or do you hunt and then put the camera where you saw the animal?
When I'm walking around in the woods in my primitive dress, I have my flintlock in one hand and I have the camera in a 4-foot tripod stretched out already, ready to flip out at a moment with the camera at the end. Yeah. So, like, I have no hands free, and it's just if I see a deer, my left hand comes up. I have a technique where the tripod flips out, it sits down, and then I got to try to get that camera on the deer, and then try to shoot the deer
without being noticed.
Just adds a whole nother level to it.
Yeah,
I guess.
And even if we move past that, the films that you're putting together, and I'm just going to call them films, the films that you're putting together where you're in that traditional clothing and stuff, just your hunts that you're doing, whether it's rifle season or the flintlock stuff, where you guys are spot and stalk, where you're moving through the woods, and a lot of that work is over the shoulder hunts. You guys see a deer bedded down, you work the angles, you get everything right, and a lot of your shots that you're taking, the camera's over the shoulder. It's not pieced together where there's, you take the cutaways after the shot was made so that we can, see this angle or that. A lot of this stuff is right over the shoulder of the hunter. It's awesome to watch.
Right. And we try not to, I guess you could say, mimic the TV shows because they are doing a lot of different angles and reenacting some of the stuff. Now, in the flintlock period dress hunt, we do the reenacting because you get that because you're trying to be from long ago. But the other stuff, we want it to actually be like more reality, more exactly what you would see. And, if we can actually get the reactions true as they happen, that's the best thing, instead of trying to redo it all and, pretend like you're excited when the deer was already dead for 20 minutes, stuff like that. Yeah. So we want to inspire other people to go out there and show them that you guys, anybody can grab a camera and go out there and do exactly what we're doing.
Yeah.
Anybody, Stevie.
Yeah.
You hear that, Stevie?
He's shaking his head.
Well, maybe not anybody. Most anybody.
Picking on Stevie here.
But definitely, John, I want to make sure that everybody takes the opportunity, if they haven't done so, and just go check out the channel, because it is really amazing, amazing stuff. And it's entertaining and it's informative. That's the other thing. I use the channel a lot just to gain some information. Like I said, it's the reason I got back into flintlock hunting later in life, and the information you're putting out is great. I'm going to leave it at that, though, for now, because Stevie's ready to choke me out. We're here to talk a little bit of hard water fishing, aren't we, Stevie?
Yeah, and this is really strange, because here we are, the middle of January almost, and I haven't seen any hard water.
I was getting ready to wash my truck
at all. Yeah, yeah. I mean,
in your short shorts.
In my short shorts.
The lake that we were fishing on last year at this time, at Cowan's Gap, had 2 inches of ice on it, and then it was gone. I think they had 2 inches around Christmas Eve, something like that, and now it's gone. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
I don't know if we will get hard water this year if we don't start.
It's not looking promising. But how are
is there any out west? Yes.
Yeah. How are things out your way, John?
It's the same thing. As soon as the ponds or the lakes get just locked up, and then they melt.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, we're going to have. I mean, it was 14 degrees when I walked out the door, but I mean, tomorrow we're going to be, by the end of the day, getting close to 60 degrees and possible rain.
Yeah. Ryan had mentioned, brought up Gus in the Western PA Hardwater Series ice fishing tournament a few minutes ago. Yeah. You guys participate in that, right?
Yeah. I've been fishing them since they first started.
And I think you guys placed
They placed them. They don't just participate,
right?
they place.
Last year?
We placed once last year on the last tournament at Lake Arthur. We have missed placing. We've come close. The very first tournament they ever had was on Lake Arthur, and we missed third place, which was third place was the final payout place.
Okay.
And we missed third place by 100th of an ounce.
What?
What kind of weights are we talking about?
I think third place had 6.25 pounds, and we had like 6.24, something like that, out of a 10-fish panfish limit.
For panfish, I mean, that's a lot of...
Yeah.
That's how close it could be
right there.
between... And that can be just a half a pound can make a big difference.
Well, if you would have let him swallow the worm when you caught him, John, you guys would have took third place.
Yeah, I know.
So when you normally get started ice fishing, where do you go?
When I first started ice fishing?
Yeah, like in your area, what lakes typically freeze over first?
Well, the thing about where I live in Clarendon County, it still takes a while to get to the closest place to ice fish. The closest, what I would almost call my, I don't know if you could even say it, hometown lake or lake that I fish closest, is still 40 minutes away, and that's Kale Lake.
Okay.
And, it's known for big bass and jumbo perch and big bluegills. And years ago held walleye, and possibly there may still be some tiger muskie in there. But mostly people go fish there for the largemouth bass and the perch.
Kale Lake.
And there's some crappie in there also that are all good size. But it is a really good lake, but it's very small, but it's very fertile. So the fish get really big really fast. So you can take a lot of fish out, and the next age class can get right up there to what you just took out the year before, because it's just so fertile and rich with food and nutrients that the fish get big fast.
Logan, you need to take me there next year. You shook your head as soon as you said it.
I fished it a couple times.
What?
Yeah, I was going to say, I looked over at Logan when he said Kale Lake because he's invited me to go there before.
Jumbo yellow perch.
Really?
We got to get out there.
And some of the biggest pumpkin seeds you ever see.
Why am I just hearing about this?
They're holding out.
The biggest thing is a lot of the yellow perch, they spit up bloodworms. That's like their main forage, it seems, in there. I mean, they spit them up like crazy.
Now, when you went out,
That is absolutely correct.
when you went out there, is that out going towards Erie when you go out
It's
that way?
right above Clarion, yeah.
Okay, okay, I know where Clarion is.
Yeah, the lake is actually half in Venango and half in Clarion County.
Okay.
Is that a lake that the tournament series fishes on, John?
Yes, I don't know if they're fishing it this year, but every year before they have fished it. There's other tournaments that go on there. There's other ice fishing tournaments that happen on that lake too. So sometimes they have worked around, in the PA Hard Water Series, have worked around some of the other tournaments. So, yeah.
Do you think, at least a lot of people that I talk to, when you mention ice fishing, even like the most diehard bass fishermen, and you mention ice fishing, and they just completely shut down. Like, it's no way. There's no way I'd ice fish. It's just not for me. Do you run into that a lot? I'm sure you probably talk to.
You know, that's a lot of people that I've talked to, and I was sort of the same way when a friend of mine took me and said, hey, you want to go ice fishing? And it's like, I'm thinking, how fun is it just to sit and look at a hole in the ice? Yeah. And why would I want to be on the ice in the middle of a lake, you know? And we used to night fish. When I first started, we only really fished at night for crappies. And it's like, why would you want to be, plus add the darkness to it? Yeah. But I think it's one of those things that until you actually go with somebody that can at least put you on fish, which is what happened with me. A friend of mine, he knew a good spot. He took me out, and it was, you couldn't keep the lines in the water for 10 or 15 minutes at a time. Really? And then it would shut down for an hour, and then it would come back, and for 10, 15 minutes, you couldn't keep your line in the water, just pulling out big crappies. And I'll never forget it. And it just got me hooked. And so I think until somebody actually tries it and actually is successful when they go out, because you can sit there, if you're not in a good spot, you can just sit there and look at a hole in the ice the whole time.
I couldn't agree with
you. Get
you
on
more.
a place where there's actually fish, or go with somebody that can show you, and I think it can be a game changer on not wanting to ice fish to just being completely bit by the ice bug and wanting to just dive right into it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, John. When I was younger, I grew up at a lake in Altoona, Canoe Creek. You know, it's not known for amazing fishing, but we did ice fish there whenever I was young, and we just never did any good. And it got to be more of a, oh, you guys want to go ice fishing? You know, all right, I'll go. It was more of a hangout session.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I moved down here and Logan put me on ice fishing till I realized how fun it can be. So I 100% agree with your comment, because I was not an ice fishing fan until I went with somebody that knew what they were doing.
So I need somebody other than Stevie to take me.
Yes.
Yeah. But you know what you just said is very important too, because a big thing about ice fishing is the social aspect of it. Yep. It's weird because you can be on the water and fish closer to people, but if you were literally in a boat fishing close to those people, you'd be like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Why are you so close to me? But when you're ice fishing, it's like you're going to all the people, and it's the normal thing. There's people that, you know, a lot of ice fishermen are very respectable on their distance of how close they get to another person, but what you would compare from open water to hard water is completely different, because it's also a different type of fishing. So there is a social aspect. You meet a lot of new people, and you can get a group of people, and depending on the type of fishing, whether you're going to just do strictly jig fishing, or I've seen a group of guys, you know, set up and bring out the grill and set up a bunch of tip-ups for bass and just hang out and have a ball on the ice for a whole day. It can be a really good social event too.
I almost disagree with that because the fact that Stevie doesn't like anybody around him because he hears the ice cracking. He doesn't care about if you fish close to him. He don't want your weight near his weight on the ice.
I can't get used to that.
The sound of it.
No. To your point, John, I think there almost is like as many guys that, as many bass fishermen say, I'll never ice fish. There's probably as many ice fishermen that say, I'm not going to go out on an 80-degree day and bass fish. Because at least the lakes that we fish here, I'll see more people at 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning in January ice fishing than I do at 6 o'clock on a Saturday morning, in June or July.
Yeah.
And so, it is almost what do they call that? Like a cult thing. It's in some respects, but I don't know. Logan, how long have you been doing it?
Probably 13, 14 years.
Really? Wow. I wish I had a Logan to teach me how to.
You do. He's right here.
You just.
Yeah.
All you have to do is call this magic number and say you want to go fishing. He said, "I'm already there. I'm already out. Come on out."
It's crazy because when I started 5 or 6 years ago, something like that, I just read a bunch and then went out on the lake and just started watching people and talking to people, and that that helps. I'm still terrible, but
I was saying earlier that I met Mr. Logan when he was like 14. I can remember one Christmas morning leaving for Lacey's grandmother's, and looking out on the lake and seeing this kid sit by himself in front of a hole on Christmas morning fishing. Logan's, and I'm not. Don't listen to this because I don't want to make you head swell. But Logan fishes.
Look away, Logan.
He's got almost 300 days last year that he put in fishing. So when it comes to, I don't think that it's ice fishing's. I think it's just a necessity that he has to go fishing and the water's
just
frozen.
Something. Yeah.
Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And here I got a good question for John, because that necessity to go fishing as a bass fisherman, and I like fishing for multiple species.
Yeah.
We can have a good day on a lake that I live at, Lake Mead. It's roughly a 300-acre lake. And if on a good day in the springtime, you can catch 10 to 50 bass. Like it's a pretty good bass lake.
I'd say.
Agree with that?
Absolutely.
But in the 8 years that I've been fishing ice with Logan on the lake, maybe 10, I've caught one bass.
Through the ice.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why our bass don't hit through the ice. And I'm not just talking to me. I'm talking about 30 ice fishermen out there that know what they're doing, and nobody catches a bass. It's very odd.
They bite. We just don't fish where they are.
Is that it?
That's the whole thing.
Okay. We're fishing 20 feet, 18 feet for crawfish.
They're more
perch.
8-10 foot of water.
Okay.
So I may know the answer to this, but John, have you ever caught a bass through the ice?
I was trying.
Oh, yes.
Trying to kick that
I've caught
pebble
quite
over.
a few bass through the ice.
Is that right?
I've never caught a smallmouth bass through the ice. Always largemouth.
Do you fish where there's smallmouth, John, through the ice?
There are a couple places that I fish where there's smallmouth. I know some people that have gotten onto some smallmouth. Gus, it has got onto some smallmouth in some places. But they hold up in certain places, and they can be pretty hard to find.
Really?
But it's sort of somewhat, depending on the lake, sort of what the bass do. They go into certain places, and, if you're fishing for perch and crappie, you may not, you might pick up a largemouth here and there, but you're not going to, like you said, you're not going to have a 35 fish day of bass.
No, right.
Most likely.
Yeah.
Now that Logan said that, coming to think about that, I did catch that bass halfway back to the boat ramp, so it probably was like 8 feet of water.
Was it?
Okay, that makes sense. Now I know where I want to fish, John. Sorry, continue. Going back halfway to the boat ramp.
So, you showed us a picture earlier of a bass
sure
you
did.
caught through the ice. Why don't tell us about that?
With a catfish. There's a pike.
I'm gonna make the official request now to Ryan that we use that fish as our show art.
Taken care of.
Okay.
Done and done.
So
so the story behind that, I'm trying to remember. I was coming home, I think, from another lake, and I had my ice fishing gear. I might have been coming home from Erie. I can't remember. But Gus was wanting to know what the ice thickness was on Kale Lake because we had a tournament coming up. And I just happened to be coming by there, so I said, well, I'm not that far away. I'll stop by on my way home. I have my ice fishing gear, and I'll just walk around and check some ice depths, thicknesses. And so I was just walking around with my sled and my auger, and I really wasn't actually going to fish, but I thought, well, while I'm here, I'll bring my flasher around, and I'll sort of, as I'm checking ice thicknesses, I'll do a little pre-fishing because I really didn't have much time to pre-fish. So I thought, well, I'll just make a circle around the lake or partial of the lake. And so I might have been my 10th hole. I think I was in about 22 feet of water, and I had this little tiny super ultralight fishing rod with an inline reel with 3-pound monofilament line with about a 3 millimeter, or is it either a 3 millimeter or 2.5 millimeter tungsten jig. And this jig was so small, I mean, it would have fit within inside your pinky nail.
So that's like the little tiny trout magnet.
It took a really long time, even though it's a tungsten jig, to get down to the bottom. So, and usually I put my flasher in and I didn't see anything. All of a sudden I saw a little flicker at the bottom. And since the perch usually hold to the bottom, I thought, well, maybe there's a perch down there, and I'll drop it down and see if something comes up.
Yeah.
So I drop it the whole way down, and I'm watching, and I have to fine-tune my flasher to pick up my jig because I went from originally in 15 feet of water. Now I'm down to like 22, and to find my jig, and I watched my jig literally touch the bottom. And all of a sudden, it looked like the bottom, it almost looked like I was bringing up my jig, but there was no separation. And I'm like, well, I was like, it almost looks like the bottom is rising as I'm sitting here, but I'm not seeing a separation.
Just a big red
And so
blob.
I just started to lift my rod, and my rod just slowly started to bend as I lifted. And I was like, oh, I'm snagged on something down there, some weeds or something.
Yeah.
And so I started lifting, and all of a sudden, I couldn't tell, but it was pulling me back down. It pulled me back down a couple inches, and I'm like, oh, maybe am I really lifting something off the bottom? Maybe I'll pull it up. And then all of a sudden, it pulled, and I just felt my arm going straight to the hole because I knew I only had 3-pound test.
Yeah.
And it starts peeling line.
Uh-oh.
So I had no idea because I've heard there was walleye in there. I've heard a couple people. Last walleye I heard caught in there, which was a rarity, was 26 inches. And I thought maybe I somehow caught a walleye on this little tiny jig. Mm-hmm. And all I had was like a little maggot at the bottom on the tip of the jig. And I'm sitting there. Next thing I know, I had gloves on, and my line wraps around my hand.
Oh, no.
So I had to stick my hand down the hole as it was pulling, and just so happened that it stopped fighting enough that I could pull back and get my hand, the line wrapped around my glove and my fingers, because then right when that happened, it made the biggest run, and it would have snapped me off. So as I'm fighting this fish, my heart's pounding because I'm thinking, this thing is huge. And no one's around me. There's other people on the ice, but nobody's around me. The people that are the closest, they're in their own little shanty. So I think, I don't know, maybe nobody's even watching me. And so I called Gus. As I have this fish on, I'm like, I have something huge on right now. I was like, I'm telling you, the ice is 4.5 inches. Because I'm still messing around. The ice is good, but I'm like, you won't believe it, but I have a big fish on right now. Because it was just not moving. and I didn't want to pull too hard because I knew I had a really tiny jig and a light line.
Test. Yeah.
And finally, when it come up, it almost wouldn't even come through the hole. I had a 6-inch auger, and the ice was probably, I think it was around like 7 inches, I think, and it had a hard time getting its head turned around. And when I realized it was a bass, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Because when I reached down, I almost couldn't pull it up through the hole because the entire mouth filled the hole. I mean, I could have stuck my entire fist down this fish's mouth. And when I pulled it up out of the water, these 2 kids saw me fighting, and they were walking my way. So they were able to take a picture as I had the fish out of the water, and took my picture with the fish. And I had my measuring tape because I was in an online fishing contest. And so they needed the measurement. So I took the measurement and took a couple more photos and then released it, and it was healthy. And I just had that thing literally it was barely hooked at the top of the mouth. And the jig was completely destroyed. I mean, by the time I got the jig, I'm like, I don't even know how the fish was hooked because it almost looked like the hook was starting to almost straighten out.
Oh, jeez.
And so that was the biggest largemouth bass I've ever caught, bass in general, that I ever caught, whether it be open water or hard water. And I wasn't even trying to really fish. And it was just I think the fish was yawning, and I dropped the jig in its mouth.
That's how I normally catch them.
I don't think a fish that big with its eyes so far apart, how big its head was, could have even seen that jig, is what my theory was, because I thought that jig was too small for this thing to even bother with it, you know? And so
he was trying to pick his teeth. He saw a little toothpick. He's like, I'll pick my teeth with that.
The fish measured 23 and a half inches, and estimation, I never weighed it, but I've showed the picture to some people. They're figuring in that 6 to 7 range, and that's in its winter weight, so that it could easily gain a pound or two come summertime. So that's a huge bass, and that was on Kale Lake.
Did you win the online tournament with that fish?
Yes, I did.
Oh,
I think I did.
Yeah.
I think I took first place with that. There used to be a online fishing tournament on iceshanty.com, and that's a good place where you can find all the ice thicknesses throughout Pennsylvania. Lots of there's state threads, there's country threads, Canada, United States, state by state also, and then there's general stuff. And so they did an online. They used to do. I don't know if they do it anymore, but. And what's amazing was this was out of all of North America, and I think 2 out of the top 3 came from Pennsylvania for largemouth bass.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Yeah,
in that online tournament.
Yeah. Wow. I'm thinking this summer I'm going to get some maggots and 2.5 millimeter
little
jigs,
tiny hooks,
14-inch
ice fishing rod
off my kayak and seeing what I can do.
Maggots.
That might be the trick.
I always wondered if lightning bugs would work.
But I tell you what, that bass was in a place that I have never caught bass in that part of the lake.
You said it was really
so I
deep,
thought it was
right?
odd that bass was there in that deep of the water, because there is a section of that lake that sort of holds more bass, and they're in like 15 to 18 feet of water and more of a flat. They're not up towards the shallower end. And so I thought it was odd because I wasn't anywhere near where I usually catch bass on that lake.
Yeah.
And
up towards the boot.
Yep.
Here's a hypothetical. Think about this hypothetical structure of the lake. Like in my lake, it has grass beds, and they're in different depths, right? So hypothetically, sometimes a big buck will lay in a cornfield, and he'll lay there, and he'll get comfortable there if he's not pushed, he's not pressured, and the farmer will come and cut the corn. And the next day, when the corn is cut, he'll be laying in a cut cornfield in the wide open because that's where he's been laying. and that's where he felt comfortable. Now he's not going to stay there real long, but unfortunately, like that's his spot. And I've heard that more than not. Guys have just seen these massive bucks laying in a field the day after it was cut in the wide open. What if these bass, like the grass dies in the winter?
Yeah.
But that's where I'm betting. Like this is where I spent all my time in the grass bed.
Still their spot.
This is still my spot. And that's kind of a thing that I've been thinking about our lake and these little grass beds that were there during the summer that aren't there now, but are the bass still there? I mean, it's hypothetical, but it's something I'm going to try this if the water freezes.
It's worth a shot.
Yeah.
I know a couple of beds over there that Logan used to catch a couple big fish off of.
Correct.
I think me and you ought to go drill a couple holes.
Yes.
You got to remember though, they lower.
You're not invited.
They lower the lake 6 feet.
Yeah.
So I still know where they are.
Everything changes.
I know where they are.
Do they do that with any of the lakes up there, John? Do they lower them for the wintertime?
No. There are some lakes that I have fished. Don't fish them that much, like Keystone Power Dam Lake. They lower that in the winter. But usually the problem with those lakes that they're the more flood control lakes. Some of the lakes that are basically rivers that are dammed up. They're kind of iffy to ice fish because the water's constantly rising and lowering and the edges break, and you never know whether you're going to go there and be able to get onto the ice or not because of that.
Gotcha.
But most of the lakes that we fish, the water's pretty much always the same level.
Gotcha. Is there any lakes up there where you're fishing, John, where you can take four-wheelers and snowmobiles out? Or
not in PA, I don't think.
No.
Just Erie.
As far as I know, all the inland lakes, you can't drive any four-wheelers or snowmobiles or anything like that. Now, in Erie, up at Presque Isle, I believe that you can, and there's certain places that you have to be able to get on to make it legitimate, I think. I don't know all the rules and regulations with those, but I think the reason why Pennsylvania, the majority of the lakes, or why the inland lakes, they don't allow that is because we just most of the time never get enough ice to really support four-wheelers and trucks.
For it to be safe,
because if we do, it doesn't last long enough.
Right.
So,
John, I'm hoping that by the end of this episode, we've been able to convince at least one person, just one person that had, in their mind is saying I'm never going to ice fish, to at least give it a try. And for that one person, I'd take a minute here for this group to kind of come up with a real down and dirty, here's the minimum I need equipment-wise to get out on the ice. So can you start us off with that? Like if someone came to you and said, I want to get started, I want to try ice fishing, what's some things that you would recommend?
Gloves.
Well, the number one thing is an auger. You have to have an auger. They come from 4 inches clear up to 10 inches. Now the PA state limit is a 10-inch hole. So you can't go any bigger than 10 inches. But the majority of people are using basically a 6-inch or an 8-inch, and I think they make a 7-inch too. I've seen a few people who are strictly going for like smaller panfish, like bluegills and stuff, use 4-inch augers. But an auger is definitely the first thing, and sometimes it can be a pretty big investment just to drill a hole in the ice. So that is, I would say, before anybody actually just goes out without ever even going ice fishing and buying the gear, I would at least try to find somebody, or at least even go on a lake where people are ice fishing and just talk to some people, because there's a lot of people out there that are willing to help you and just show you, and may even allow you to even use their rod and test out just to see what it's even like.
That's a good idea.
But you definitely need an ice auger. But before you even walk in the ice, I think the number one thing is some type of safety device, which is ice picks. you should go buy a pair of ice picks. So even if you walk out onto the ice and you're not even fishing just to talk to people, you want to make sure that you're safe. And that way, if you do break through, always be checking, the ice thicknesses. But other than that, I've seen people using regular fishing poles, like a small little trout rod.
Yeah.
I've literally seen a couple people out there using those. So you don't have to go and, buy all the best gear. When I started, it was like really cheap, Walmart ice fishing rod, something that you can almost buy a thing of jigs, an ice pick, line and reel combo, and rod, all for like $25. You could have all that.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And then all you need is a way to drill a hole in the ice. And just wear some good clothes. I wore my hunting suit for the first years that I was on the ice. I didn't have at that time, the flotation suits weren't even that well known. And then as you go, you can upgrade into better ice fishing clothing. You can upgrade into shanties or hubs and slowly increase your ice fishing equipment and upgrade over the years. And that's what I did because, like I said, an auger is going to be the first big investment, and you want to make sure that you enjoy it when you go to buy one. So that's the number one thing right there.
So, John, specifically about the auger, I just want to check your stance on this. Should you have a sharp blade or a dull blade? Just wondering.
You definitely need a sharp blade.
Hear that, Stevie?
It was sharp.
The blades are on backwards.
Oh, you're supposed to turn.
There's different types of auger blades. There's chipper blades. There's regular straight cut blades. Then you have what is sort of in its own the Nils auger head, which is the whole head is one solid piece of metal. So there's no replacements of the blade. You either have to replace the whole head or have the whole head shipped to have professionally sharpened. You can't really sharpen them yourself.
They're amazing.
These are there's different price ranges, and different things. So if you're in like really dirty ice, where you might drill through some weeds, or there's dirt from maybe it flooded and then it freezed up, because I've seen that before where we got a lot of rain and it just somehow the dirt gets into the ice.
Wow.
And that can dull a blade real quick. If you have like a chipper blade, that's not going to dull the blade as often. If you have like a real fine blade like a Nils auger head, you're going to ruin that blade probably in the first cut, because they will last a really, really long time if you cut through clean ice. So always make sure you know what's underneath. You don't want to be cutting down into where you might hit a rock, or there could be stumps or something like that, because it can dull the blades pretty quick. Wow. It's kind of interesting because you're cutting through ice that's like rock hard, but something like that will dull the blade.
Huh.
Yep, they're designed just to, there's shavers, there's chippers, and you always want to take care of your blades.
You have two butter knives.
You have the butter knife.
I can tell you one
blade.
Piece of metal.
I think what I was doing, and I'll need to get John's advice on whether this is appropriate or not, is you get most of the way through the hole, and then you take the auger and you bang down on it real hard.
Through the last 4 inches.
The last couple inches, you just bang through it with the auger.
No.
That has a tendency to bend them up.
It makes more of a taper in the hole. It's the bigger fish come out easier.
Right.
Yeah. So I think
I would recommend a 6-inch auger or less, because most people who are ice fishing, unless you plan on really going and you're really good at finding big walleye or muskie, then you think about going up into, a 10-inch. Now, an 8-inch, you might want to go with an 8-inch. Some people like it because you can get some of those big crappies that sort of have to wiggle their way up through a 6-inch hole because they're so tall.
Or a big
and those are fun when you see them, and it makes them look really big when you're like, I don't know if it's going to fit through the hole. So some tournament fishermen, some guys that really don't want to lose fish, you go with that 8-inch hole. That way, it's a little easier to bring some of those fish that are fighting really hard. Because, like I said, you get like a 23-inch bass and you're not expecting it, it's going to come up through an 8-inch hole a lot easier than a 6-inch hole.
I wish we would have had this conversation years ago, because my first auger was a 10-inch one, and I just have a hand, I just do it by hand. I'm not going to. And the ice that year had got to 10, 12 inches thick. No. And you drill one of those, you're pretty well toasted.
This is a good spot. I'm
already out of breath thinking about it, because I know what it was like doing an 8-inch hand auger in 22 inches of ice.
Well, the next year I downgraded to a 6-inch, and that's much easier.
Have you seen the new technology type, the electric augers out? How long do they last drilling holes? Because I have not used one.
Yeah.
Well, it really depends on the use, how thick the ice is. I haven't personally used one. I know a lot more guys that I fish with are actually buying power drills and attaching them straight to the auger.
Yeah.
There's an auger that come out called the K drill. So it's specifically designed for a hammer drill, and it's got like a chipper style blade, and it throws the ice out, and then you can just reverse it or either way and clean your hole out. You don't even need an ice scooper. You just turn it and zip it, and it throws all the ice right out of the hole, and you're done.
A little bit of advice
so a lot more
for
people are doing that.
A little advice for people using the drill: don't buy the cheapest one on the shelf, because I tried that too with this 10-inch auger.
Speaking from experience,
yeah, some guys at work made me made an adapter to connect this auger to a drill, and you get one hole per battery.
That's on a 10-inch.
Right. What you have to realize is that most of the drill companies making these drills are not making them for augers.
No.
So you don't want to be thinking, I'm going to buy this really expensive drill, put it on my auger, and then it doesn't, it destroys your drill, and then they're going to say, well, you shouldn't have been using it on an ice auger.
I also think most of these companies make their money on the battery.
There's a lot of information online that tells you what drills are best for what size and what type, and all the different brands of augers out there to make that decision for yourself. If you're worried about that, there are augers like the Strike Master and the Ion that are itself the company's own electric auger powered drills. So you can go that route also. And the lithium technology in the batteries now are making these, they're able to withstand the cold a lot better. They work better in the cold than the old lead acid batteries. They're lighter and they're more powerful, and you're getting way more holes. Most of them, you're probably not going to wear the battery out in a day.
Yeah.
For the average ice fisherman, might only drill, a dozen holes. Maybe that's it for the day.
Not Stevie.
But a tournament fisherman could drill 100, 150, 200 holes in a day.
I'll tell you, it's tough. If we lived, 2 hours north, I might invest in it.
That's the hardest thing.
It's tough.
I want to upgrade all my ice fishing stuff too, but
here we are mid-January.
Sometimes we get 10 days of fishing a year. It's very difficult to spend the money on it down here.
Yeah. What about electronics, John? How do you approach that?
Flashers, you mean?
Well, I'll tell you what. I fished for the longest time without a fish finder or flasher. And I tell you what, it made the difference between fishing and catching fish.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because they are not a cheap thing also. That is a very expensive unit. You're looking at, You know, for a decent one, you're looking, I don't know, possibly around, you know, $250, $350 for an ice flasher. There's many different makes and models anymore. Even as I'm saying this right now, there's probably a new line already out there that I'm not even aware of. But that will also help you. It's going to put most likely more wear on your auger, because you can you can hole hop. So you drill a hole, you put your flasher in, you see if there's any fish. If there's nothing, there's no marks. Usually you run down, because the fish, when your sonar is down below the ice, you're at a cone angle. So there's an angle to your sonar that's going down. So maybe at the bottom, if you're fishing 20 feet, you might be in a 15-foot radius from your hole.
Right.
But maybe you might not be able to see something that is 5 feet from you, only 5 feet under the ice. So they do have their limits, but you can at least see if there's something straight below you. And if there isn't, you can keep bouncing around the lake until you find fish. That is, when I first started, you kept going out, you drilled holes, and you fished blind. If you caught fish, you remembered that spot. If you didn't have a GPS, you used the terrain.
Yeah.
You used trees at the end of the lake. Anything that could help you put yourself back on that same spot the next time you showed up.
Triangulate it.
Yeah,
And
makes sense.
over time, people got to find out where there were stumps or a good spot or something like that. And you would check your depth with just a heavy weight, drop your line down and pick your line up and count how many feet you were in, and then drill another hole. And it was just time consuming.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, you know, driving to a lake and spending that money and time, all just to try to find fish or maybe catch fish. When you look at it the other way around, yeah, a couple $100 for a fish finder sounds like a lot of money, but you're going to save that money because you're going to catch a lot more fish with it, and you're not going to be having some of those days where you go out and fish for 7 hours that I've done before and never catch a fish.
Yeah.
Before I had a fish finder.
Yeah.
The bite was off, or I was in the wrong location. So that is a big game changer, but it's not a necessary part, because there's still a lot of old timers that I've seen on the ice that can outfish you without a fish finder.
Yeah.
So it really is experience. Technology can only get you so far. You still have jigging techniques and your bait and your lures and all the other different things that go into it. The fish finder can help you put yourself on fish, doesn't make you catch fish. You know what I mean?
Yeah, even with the fish finder, I've had experiences, I'm sure, everybody around here has too, where, the fish is there and it almost looks like they're just staring at the bait, no matter what you do. I mean, they're just staring at it.
They just don't commit.
They just don't commit, for, minutes at a time. They'll swim away and you jig it a little bit and they come back and, that light lights up right next to your lure, and they're just looking at it. I don't know what they're doing, but they're not
used
committing.
to fishing them picky trout.
Picky trout, yeah, that's true.
That happens all the time. But I'm telling you, I have seen people, and especially fishing these tournaments, which I believe more people should fish these tournaments, because they will make you it forces you to be a better fisherman.
Does it?
And you'll think it's the worst day. Nobody's catching anything. These fish aren't biting, and there's always somebody that comes with a full bucket. And it just goes to show you that there could be a lot of people that have a bad day, but there can be always somebody on that day having a really good day.
Yeah.
And so I've literally sat beside people. I've had it happen both ways, where we're sitting no more than 10 feet, and he's just slamming perch and crappie out of the hole. And I'm right beside him, and he's slamming them. And I'm like, what are you using? I put the same thing on. And he just has that touch. There's some little cadence or some little flicker, or he's holding it at the right depth or doing something that I'm not doing. And just that little thing is triggering those fish that don't really want to bite.
Yeah.
And I've had it happen where I've had friends going, what are you doing? And I'd tell them, I'd be the other way around. I had friends like, what are you doing? And I've had those days, and it's tough when you watch them and they're just staring at your jig and they're like, come on.
Did you ever try to knock the rod right at the seat of the reel? Just knock on the rod. Stevie told me there's a surf
it worked for me surf fishing
technique where you knock on the rod.
Yeah, you just really
sends
like
a little bit of vibration
you
down
just
there.
knock on it, and I'm not kidding, John. I was at the beach this year fishing, and actually I wasn't fishing at the time, but there was a bunch of people fishing around me, and I saw this older guy. And, he was just reeling them in one right after the next. Nobody else was catching anything. And he would wing it out there and knock on the rod with his fist, just like he was knocking on the door. And I tried it later that night. And it worked. And I mean, literally, I'm not lying. I would throw the bait out there. I'd get nothing. And then I would knock on the rod and...
these are old school
10,
techniques.
15, 20 seconds later. And I probably let the cat out of the bag. I feel bad for that guy who just blew his,
It's like
told
her
everyone
pumpkin
his
for
technique.
catfish.
But yeah.
Do you ever see that wooden, it looks like a backwards spoon oar that old timers will go up and down in the water off their John boat when they're jug fishing for catfish or they're catfishing, and it goes kerplunk, kerplunk, kerplunk. It makes this special cadence. It makes this weird sound
for catfish,
and it makes catfish go into like a feeding frenzy.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
I believe it.
Does it sound like the jaws?
Mm-hmm.
Snapping.
Something that whatever it makes them go feeding.
Well, I'm going to try this whole knocking on the rod thing on my flintlock.
Try it
on Saturday. See if I can make something happen.
Well, you could try.
Knock it on the flintlock.
Yeah, knock on the flintlock.
See if any deers start biting.
Stick your tongue to the barrel when it's 4 degrees out.
Right. Saturday's going to be 65 and raining. I'm sure my gun will go off.
Yeah. Oh, how are we on time, Ryan?
Buddy, we're actually right there.
Are you serious?
We knocked the heck out of this thing. Speaking of knocking on the rod.
Yeah. Oh, man. John, I only had a list of about 75 more questions. We got through 4
I know. We just
them.
scratched the surface about ice fishing.
No.
Well, if you were using Stevie's auger, you wouldn't even have got that deep.
Public service announcement: do not use the auger as a ice pick. It doesn't work.
As a sledgehammer.
Yeah, as a sledgehammer. John, are you a coffee drinker?
Yes, I am.
Well, we're going to say stay on the line here.
Good news.
Our friends from Duck Blind Coffee have given us some coffee to send out to you.
Yeah, we want to make sure you get a chance to migrate over to a better cup.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So,
and for anybody listening that wants to try some of that Duck Blind coffee, head on over to Duck Blind Online.
Yeah, check them out. Good stuff. So, yeah, we'll get that out to you right away. Thank you for spending some time with us tonight. This was a good night. You guys have had an awesome season so far, and I'm sure we'll talk again here soon.
Yeah, John, we need to hook up. I'm going to be looking for that flintlock video.
Yeah.
And, pretty soon the weather's going to break. You guys will be hunting morels. Then you'll be hunting rattlesnakes, and it'll be all over again. I can't wait.
Yeah.
Yep. So we're looking forward to the fishing tournaments, the WPA Hard Water Series. I just wanted to let you guys know, because that is something I recommend people coming out, and if you're an ice fisherman, joining that, because after last year, that was the largest panfish tournament in the United States.
Isn't that crazy? Right here in
That's
our
right.
backyard.
Gus did tell us that. It ended up being the biggest
Thousands
one.
of cash prizes and giveaways. So I mean, it is really amazing how big Gus and Billy and some of those guys have brought that series, and now going into Ohio, into New York. And that's where most likely on the weekends I'm going to be fishing. I'm going to be on the ice probably doing some of those tournaments. So
awesome.
You know what? I ought to enter one of those tournaments. Maybe I'll pick up one of them striker suits that we were talking about with Catfish.
Yeah, Gus, I think Gus gave two of those away last year.
Yeah.
You didn't even have to win to get one.
Nope.
Yeah. All right, John. Thank you. But I appreciate it. How can people follow you guys and keep an eye out for this new Flintlock video you got coming out?
You can look on YouTube. We have 2 YouTube channels. Leatherwood Outdoors, 2 words, and our second channel is Leatherwood Outdoors 2. That's all one word with a number 2 at the end. We'll probably most likely have that Flintlock video on the main channel, Leatherwood Outdoors, but we also have a Facebook page, and you can follow us on Instagram.
You guys are everywhere.
You sure are. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much,
It's been
John.
fun, guys. Thanks.
It's been a great
you.
night. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Yep.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. Stevie.
Yep, we'll see you.
Yes, sir.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about this month's other sponsor?
This month is also brought to you in part by Miser Creative LLC. Rutten River Pursuits podcast is a production of Miser Creative LLC, and if you're interested in starting your own podcast, or if you need help creating video content for social media, look us up. Give Will an email at will@ruttenriverpursuits.com for more information or pricing options.
Love me some Miser boys.
Mm-hmm.
You know it.
Mm-hmm. Good fellas.
So true.
Hey, Catfish.
Yes, sir.
Where can people find us?
You can find us at ruttenriverpursuits.com. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook and check out them YouTubes, as Stevie would say.
Mm-hmm. Check them out.
And I believe we're still tweeting. That's what I heard.
Sure.
Tweet away.
Tweet away.
Download the podcast on
Yes.
iHeartRadio, Spotify, and iTunes.
Yeah. And I don't know when this is going to come out, but you can find us at the Great American Outdoor Show coming up shortly.
Yeah.
That's true.
So come on
We're
out
gonna
and
be
say
all
hello
over
to
that
us. You
place.
see
Yeah.
us running around.
You got it.
That should be about what time this comes out.
Did you see Stevie start twitching as soon as you said that?
Did I
His
say
legs are already
iTunes?
hurting.
It's because the milkshakes are there.
You said iTunes. You
I meant Apple Podcasts. Sure, we're probably on iTunes, too.
I know we are.
Yeah.
We're everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah. All right.
Good show, boys.
I'm just amped up because we spent an hour talking about ice
He
fishing.
just wants to go ice fishing.
I'm happy
Yeah.
for you, buddy.
I got the
I can't
ice
wait.
fishing
I can't wait for
jitters.
Logan to take me. Maybe I'll like ice fishing.
You can borrow my auger.
Yeah. Uh-huh. We'll see how that works out.
All right, guys.
Good show, boys.
Thanks, fellas.
See you.
Later. Rig a weedless.
Third place was the final payout place.
Okay.
And we missed third place by 100th of an ounce.
What?
What kind of weights
So,
are we talking about? First
I think
through
it
third?
was. I think third place had 6.25 pounds, and we had like 6.24 or something like that out of a 10-fish panfish limit.
Boy, if you would have let him swallow the worm when you caught him, John, you guys would have took third place.
Yeah, I know.
I'll need to get John's advice on whether this is appropriate or not. Is you get most of the way through the hole, and then you take the auger and you bang down on it real hard.
Through the last 4
Yeah,
inches.
the last couple inches you just bang through it with the auger.
No.
That has a
It
tendency
makes
to
more
bend
of a,
them up
it makes
a
more of
little
a
bit.
taper in the
Yeah,
hole.
yeah, it's
the bigger fish come out easier.
I mean,
Right.
yeah. John, I only had a list of about 75 more questions. We got through
Oh, I know.
four
We
of
just
them.
scratched the surface about ice fishing.
No.
Well, if you were
No.
using Stevie's auger, you wouldn't even have got that deep.
Public service announcement: do not use the auger as a ice pick. It doesn't work.